The royal court of Vexar was a place of power and fear. Queen Lorraine sat on her crystal throne, listening to reports from her generals about border conflicts. With the Krello, her purple skin gleamed under the hall's bright lights, and her 4 eyes missed nothing. She was the ruler of 17 star systems, and everyone in the galaxy knew her name. Behind her throne, almost invisible to the gathered nobles, stood Dahian. He was human with dark hair and quiet eyes. He wore simple robes instead of military armor like the Vexarian warriors. In his hands he held a data pad where he was reading something about Earth poetry. Most of the court didn't even look at him. The Krello took another mining station last week, General Vask announced, his voice deep and angry. We must respond with force, my queen. Lannis nodded slowly, considering the options. She noticed how the nobles whispered to each other, their eyes flickering to Dahian with barely hidden contempt. They called him the Flower Keeper because he spent most of his time in the palace gardens. They couldn't understand why their powerful queen had married such an ordinary man. What does your consort think, counselor there? Asked, his tone mocking. Perhaps we should negotiate with the Krello over tea and discuss their feelings. Several nobles laughed. Day looked up from his reading but said nothing. His face remained calm, showing no anger at the insult. Lannis's eyes flashed with irritation. My husband's opinions are not your concern, counselor. We will discuss military matters and nothing else. The court session continued for another hour. When it finally ended, Lannis walked back to her private chambers with Dayan following quietly behind. Once the doors closed and they were alone, she let out a tired breath. You don't have to endure their mockery, she said, removing her formal crown. You could stay in our chambers during court sessions. Dion smiled and poured her glass of water from earth. I like being near you, even when your nobles treat me like furniture. She sat down heavily on their bed. Sometimes I wonder if I was foolish to marry you. A queen should marry a warrior, someone who can stand beside her in battle. Instead, I chose a merchant who prefers gardens to glory. He sat beside her and took her hand gently. Do you regret it? Do you regret it? Lannis looked into his eyes. 3 years ago, she had visited Earth for a trade negotiation. She met Dahian in a market where he sold rare books and earth plants. They talked for hours about philosophy, art, and the nature of power. He was different from anyone she had ever met. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions instead of giving orders. When she returned to Vexar, she couldn't stop thinking about him. No, she admitted. I don't regret it, but my people don't understand. They see weakness where I see wisdom. Some flowers bloom only when the season is right, my love, June said softly. Perhaps they will understand me better when the time comes. She didn't know what he meant by that, but his voice was comforting. She leaned against him and they sat in silence for a while. The next morning, Dahan was in the palace gardens as usual. The Vexarian plants were beautiful but dangerous, with thorns that could pierce armor. He moved among them carefully, trimming leaves and checking soil. Several palace guards watched him from a distance, shaking their heads. Can you believe that's the queen's husband? One guard whispered to another. My grandmother has more fighting spirit than him. I heard he's never even held a weapon, the other replied. What kind of Man lives in a warrior empire and tends flowers all day. Dahian heard them but didn't react. He continued his work, his movements precise and careful. Among the Vexarian plants he had also cultivated a small section of earth flowers, roses, chrysanthemums, and small bamboo plants grew in neat rows. He watered them while reading reports on his data pad about trading routes and merchant shipping. Lady Sarah's, the queen's closest friend and advisor, found him there in the afternoon. She was one of the few nobles who actually spoke to him with respect. The queen seems troubled, Sarah said, standing at the garden's edge. The situation with the Krell is getting worse, I know, Dahan replied, not looking up from his plants. War is coming whether we want it or not, and what will you do when it arrives? Sarah's asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Will you hide in these gardens while your wife fights? Dahyun finally looked at her. For just a moment something flickered in his eyes, something cold and distant that made Sarah's take a step back. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual gentle expression. I will do whatever is necessary, he said simply. That night alarms suddenly blared throughout the palace. Dahian was in the library reading military history from Earth's ancient wars. Lioness burst into the room, already wearing her combat armor. Krell ships just appeared in orbit, she said. Quickly, dozens of them. They bypassed our outer defenses somehow. The capital is under attack. Explosions echoed in the distance. The palace shook slightly. Dahan stood up, his book falling to the floor. Through the window they could see ships burning in the night sky. You need to evacuate with the other civilians, Lioness commanded, her voice switching to her royal tone. General Vask, we and LT Unc and GT LL take you to the underground shelters. No, Dahian said quietly. I'm staying with you. This isn't a discussion. You're not a warrior. You'll die if you stay here. He walked to her and placed both hands on her shoulders. I'm staying, trust me on this. Before she could argue, General Vask and LT Unc and GT voice came through her communication device. My queen, they're landing troops around the palace. We're being surrounded. You need to get to the command center immediately. Linus looked at Dayan one more time, then nodded. Fine, but stay close to me and don't do anything stupid. They ran through the palace corridors together. Royal guards joined them, forming a protective circle around their queen. The sounds of battle grew louder. Energy weapons fired. Somewhere nearby, screams echoed through the halls. They were almost to the command center when the wall exploded. Inward, Krell warriors poured through the hole, their weapons already firing. 2 guards fell immediately. The others returned fire, creating a chaotic firefight in the narrow hallway. Dahian stayed behind Lyronus as she had ordered, appearing to cower against the wall, but his eyes were moving, calculating, watching every movement of the enemy soldiers. His breathing was controlled and steady, not panicked like it should have been. A Krell warrior broke through the guard line and charged directly at Lyronus with a blade raised high. Time seemed to slow down. Then Dahian moved. The Krell warrior was massive, twice the size of a human, with gray armored skin and 4 powerful arms. His blade was aimed straight at Lyroness's throat. The remaining guards were too far away to help. She raised her own weapon, knowing she wouldn't be fast enough. June stepped between them so quickly that Lyoness barely saw him. Move, his hand struck the Krell's wrist. With surgical precision, the blade flew from the warrior and LT Unk and GT's grip. Before the Krell could react, Dune grabbed two of his arms, twisted them in a way that shouldn't have been possible, and threw the massive alien to the ground with a heavy crash. The hallway went silent, except for the sound of distant explosions. Everyone stared at the quiet human who had just defeated a Krell elite warrior. In 3 seconds, how did you, Lyonese? Started to say, but two more Krell warriors came through the broken wall. Dahyun moved again, this time Lyonese watched carefully. His movements were economical and precise, no wasted motion, no hesitation. He wasn't fighting like an amateur, learning as he went. He was fighting like someone who had done this thousands of times before. He disarmed the first Krell with a strike to the nerve cluster in the warrior's shoulder. The second one he avoided completely, letting the warrior's own momentum carry him into the wall. Then Dahyun took the fallen weapon and used it to knock both Krell unconscious. With controlled blows, the entire fight lasted maybe 10 seconds. Dahyun stood in the center of the hallway, breathing normally, holding the Krell weapon like he had been trained with it his entire life. His gentle expression was gone, replaced by something focused and deadly. Get the queen to the command center, he said to the guards, his voice carrying authority they had never heard from him before. I'll handle any more that come through this breach. Dahyun, what is happening? Lyonese demanded. How can you fight like that? Before he could answer, the palace shook with another explosion. General Vask and LT Unk and GT's voice came through the communicator again, this time weak and pained. Command center is compromised. I'm injured. Krell teams are inside the inner palace. My queen, you need to reach the throne room and activate the emergency defenses. Lyonese made a quick decision. Everyone to the throne room. Now they ran together through the palace. Dai stayed at Lion's side, but now he moved differently. His eyes scanned every corner and doorway. His body was tense and ready. The guards who had mocked him that morning now looked at him with confusion and growing respect. More Krell soldiers appeared from a side corridor. Dahyun didn't wait for the guards to engage. He moved forward, using the palace architecture against the enemy. He caused one Krell to trip over a decorative statue. He threw another into a crystal pillar with enough force to crack both the pillar and the warrior's armor. Lady Sarah's, who was running with them, whispered to Lyonesse. I don't know, Lyonesse admitted, her voice tight. They finally reached the throne room. The massive doors were still sealed. Lyonesse pressed her hand against the security panel, and the doors opened. Inside they found a squad of Krell elite warriors already waiting. These were not regular soldiers. These were the Dominion's best fighters, each one trained since childhood to kill. The lead Krell warrior laughed when he saw them. Queen Lyonesse, we've been waiting for you. Surrender now and your people will be spared. Vexarians don't surrender, Lyonesse growled, raising her weapon. Then you will die. The Krell commander gestured and his warriors advanced. Dahyun stepped in front of Lyonesse again. Stay behind me. You can't fight all of them alone, she said. Watch me. The Krell warriors attacked together, using coordinated tactics. But Dahyun moved through them like water flowing around rocks. He used their size against them, staying too close for their long weapons to be effective. When one warrior's blade came too near, he didn't just dodge it, he redirected it into another warrior's shield. One Krello managed to grab him from behind. With two powerful arms, Dahun didn't panic. He struck backward with his elbow into the warrior's solar plexus, then dropped his weight suddenly, throwing the massive alien over his shoulder. The Vexarian guards joined the fight, but they quickly realized something strange. Dahun wasn't just fighting randomly, he was positioning the Krell warriors so the guards would have easier targets. He was controlling the entire flow of the battle. 3 Krell warriors lay unconscious on the floor, 2 more were disarmed and retreating. The commander stood alone, his confidence gone. "Who are you?" the Krell commander demanded, staring at Dahun. "You fight like no human I've ever seen." Dahun didn't answer. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a communication chip. None of the Vexarians had ever seen him carry it before. He pressed a button and spoke a single word. The Krello commander's eyes widened in recognition and fear. "That's impossible. Protocol Autumn is in Earth military code. That means you're an..." Explosion rocked the palace again, cutting off his words. More Krell soldiers were pouring into the palace from multiple directions. The situation was getting desperate. Lyranes activated the throne room's defense systems, causing energy shields to appear over the doors. It would buy them time, but not much. She turned to Dahun, her voice shaking with emotion. She was trying to control. "Explain now." Dahun looked at her with apologetic eyes. The cold warrior expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything, my love, but I promise I'll explain after we survive this everything." Lyranes repeated, "What does that mean? Who are you really?" Before he could answer, the air in the throne room shimmered. Lyranes recognized the signature of teleportation technology, but not Vexarian technology. This was something else. 6 figures materialized in the throne room. They wore black combat armor with no insignia, carrying weapons that Lyranes didn't recognize. They moved with the same precise efficiency as Dahun. The leader removed her helmet, revealing a human woman with sharp eyes and a scarred face. She looked at Dayan and saluted. "Admiral Lee, Protocol Autumn is active. Phoenix team is here to assist." Admiral Lyranes' mind was racing. Day nodded at the woman. "Thank you, Commander High 1. Status report. Krello fleet has orbital superiority. Ground forces are overwhelming the palace defenses. Vexarian casualties are high. We have additional teams securing the spaceport and communication arrays." Dion processed this information quickly, then looked at Lyranes. "I need to coordinate the defense. Will you trust me?" Lyranes stared at this stranger who looked like her husband, the gentle man who read poetry and grew flowers, the man who had just defeated elite Krell warriors with his bare hands, the man who apparently commanded Earth military forces she didn't know existed. Outside, the sounds of battle grew louder. Her people were dying. Her empire was under attack. She could hear the Krello forces getting closer to the throne room. Despite the shields, she looked into Dahun and LT Unk and GT's eyes and saw both the man she married and someone completely new, someone who had been hiding his true self for 3 years. Part of her was angry at the deception. Part of her was hurt that he didn't trust her with the truth. But right now, Her people needed a defender. And the only person who seemed to have a plan was standing right in front of her. "Yes," she said finally, "I trust you. Do whatever you need to do, Dahai." Yun and LT, Unk and GT's expression showed relief and gratitude. He turned to Commander Hiwen. "Get the Queen to a secure location, then rally all available forces in the Eastern Wing. We're going to turn this palace into a trap." "Understood, Admiral." And Haywen Dahayan added quietly, "Send the signal to Earth. Tell them we need the fleet." Hai hesitated for just a moment. "Sir, that will reveal everything. There's no going back from this." "See, I know," Dahan said, glancing at Lyranus. "But some secrets can't be kept forever, especially when lives are at stake." As Commander Hiwen and her team began securing the throne room, Lyranes grabbed Dean's arm. "Promise me," she said fiercely, "promise me that when this is over, you'll tell me everything. No more secrets." He covered her hand with his own. "I promise everything." The throne room shield sparked and began to fail. The Krell were breaking through. Dahayan picked up a fallen Krell rifle and checked its power cell. With practiced ease, the throne room shields collapsed completely. Krell warriors poured through the doors like a wave of gray armor and weapons, but they didn't find an easy target. Instead, they found a kill zone. Commander Hwan's team had positioned themselves perfectly during the brief respite. The Krell entered through a narrow doorway, limiting their numbers. Dahun stood in the center of the room, coordinating fire with hand signals that his team understood instantly. Lyranes watched from behind a reinforced pillar where Haywen had positioned her. She had seen many battles in her life, but she had never seen humans fight before. They moved differently than Vexarians or any other species she knew, where her warriors relied on strength and direct assault. The humans used angles and timing. They made the enemy come to them, then punished every step forward. Dahun moved among his team like he was conducting music. A gesture here caused two soldiers to shift position. A word there made another team member throw a device that created a temporary barrier. He wasn't just fighting, he was controlling the entire battlefield. "Fall back to secondary position," Dahun ordered calmly, as if he was discussing the weather instead of fighting for his life. "Let them think they're winning." The human team retreated in perfect order, never exposing their backs. Krell advanced eagerly, thinking they had broken the defense. Then Dahun triggered something on his wrist device. The decorative panels along the throne room walls exploded outward, not with fire but with sticky foam that hardened instantly on contact. Half the Krell warriors were trapped in place, unable to move. The ones who weren't trapped suddenly found themselves facing concentrated fire from multiple angles. "The garden decorations," Lannies whispered in shock. "Those weren't decorations at all," said Lady Sarahs, who was crouched beside the Queen, nodded. Slowly, "He's been preparing for this for years. He's been turning this palace into a fortress. We just never saw it." The Krell retreated, dragging their wounded with them. The throne room was secured, at least temporarily. Dahan immediately moved to check on his team, ensuring no one was seriously injured. Then he approached Lyranus. "The palace is secure for now, but the space battle above us is the real problem," he said, his voice returning to a gentler tone. "When speaking to her, if we don't stop their fleet, they'll just keep sending Troops down, our fleet is fighting. Liani said. General Vask had 3 battle groups in orbit. Dahan shook his head. Had the Krell ambushed them with twice the expected numbers? I've been monitoring the tactical feeds. Your fleet is losing badly. How do you know this? Lianis demanded. How are you accessing our military communications? He had the grace to look embarrassed. Those trade accounts I managed, they included access to your defense network. I've been monitoring threats to Vexar for the past 3 years before Lianis could respond to that revelation. Commander Hwan approached. Admiral, we have a problem. General Vask is alive, but badly injured. The Vexarian command structure is in chaos. Someone needs to coordinate the defense. Dahan looked at Lianis. It should be you. You're the Queen. I'm a warrior, not a fleet commander. Lias admitted her pride, wearing with practicality. My generals handle space battles, but they're either dead or scattered. Then let me help, Dean said quietly. I can coordinate the defense, but I need your authority to do it. Lianis thought about everything she had seen in the last hour, her gentle husband defeating elite warriors, his hidden military team, the defensive systems he had secretly installed throughout her palace. Every quiet day in the gardens had been a lie, or had it? She looked at his face and saw genuine concern there. Not for himself, but for her and her people. Whatever secrets he had kept, he was here fighting beside her. Now do it, she said. You have my full authority to command the defense, but Dayan, when this is over, I know, he interrupted gently. When this is over, I owe you many answers. He turned to Hwan. Get me a tactical display and open a channel to what's left of the Vexarian fleet command. Within minutes, a holographic display filled the throne room, showing the battle raging in orbit. Lianis watched as Dahan studied it, his eyes moving rapidly across ship positions and tactical data. She had seen him look at his garden plants with the same intense focus. Several Vexarian commanders appeared on the communication screen, their faces showing stress and desperation. When they saw Dahan, confusion replaced their other emotions. The Flower Keeper, one commander said in disbelief. What is happening? This is Admiral Lee Dahan of Earth Defense Command, Dahan said in a voice that carried absolute authority. Queen Lianis has granted me tactical command of this engagement. You will follow my orders without question. Is that clear? Dahan, the commanders looked at Lianis. She nodded firmly. Do as he says immediately. What followed was like watching an artist paint. Dahan began issuing orders that made no sense to the Vexarian commanders. At first, he told ships to retreat when they should advance. He ordered formations that violated standard doctrine. He divided forces when conventional wisdom said to concentrate them, but then the pattern became clear. He was using the Krell's own tactics against them. The Krell fought in rigid formations, expecting their enemies to do the same. When the Vexarian ship started moving unpredictably, breaking into smaller groups and attacking from unexpected angles, the Krell formation began to fall apart. Sir, I don't understand, one Vexarian commander said. Why are we avoiding direct combat? We have stronger ships. Because they have more ships, Dayan explained patiently. In a direct fight, you lose, but if you make them chase, you divide their attention, force them to protect multiple targets at once, you Can win despite the numbers, Lyronis. Watch the tactical display shift. The Krell fleet was spreading out, trying to cover all the Vixirian attacks. Their advantage in numbers was becoming a disadvantage as they struggled to coordinate so many ships at once. This is human military doctrine, Lady Sarah's said quietly to Lyronis. I've read about it. They call it asymmetric warfare, using mobility and unpredictability against stronger opponents. How do you know about human military doctrine? Lyonese asked. Sarah's looked uncomfortable. I may have done some research about your husband after you married him. The official record said he was a merchant, but there were some inconsistencies. I never imagined this, though. On the display, the battle was turning, not quickly but steadily. The Krell were getting frustrated, making mistakes. The Hun exploited each mistake ruthlessly, sending ships to attack weak points in their formation. Then a new signal appeared on the display, ships emerging from faster than light travel at the edge of the system. Dozens of them, the Krell's reinforcements had arrived. Every Vixirian commander's face fell. They couldn't win against even more enemies. But the Hun was smiling. Those aren't Krell ships, he said. Those are mine. The new fleet moved into view on the holographic display. The ships were smaller than either Vixirian or Krell vessels, with strange designs that didn't match any known military doctrine, but they moved with incredible precision, like a school of fish moving. As one, a new face appeared on the communication screen, an older human woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Admiral Lee, this is Fleet Admiral Park. Jai Wu, Earth Expeditionary Fleet is at your disposal. It's good to see you. Admiral Park, the Hun said warmly. I need you to execute diamond formation on the Krell's left flank, coordinate with Vixirian ships for maximum effect. Understood. Beginning attack run now. Lyronese watched in amazement as the human fleet entered combat. Their ships darted between larger Krell vessels, firing weapons that seemed to ignore shield. They used the Krell's own ships as cover, making it difficult for the enemy to fire without hitting their own forces. How did you do this, Lyonese asked Dawn. How did you get an entire fleet here so quickly? They were already nearby, Dahan admitted. When I married you, Earth wanted to ensure I would be safe. Udmark has been stationed 2 systems away for 3 years, ready to respond if needed. Your entire planet has been protecting you this whole time, not just protecting me, the Hun said quietly. Protecting you too. Earth considers the Vixirian Empire an important ally. When I married you, that alliance became personal for a lot of people. The combined human Vixirian fleet began overwhelming the Krell forces. Dahan coordinated both sides perfectly, using Vixirian strength and firepower. With human speed and tactics, ships that couldn't work together before were now functioning as a unified force. But then Day started shaking slightly. He gripped the edge of the tactical display. To steady them, Commander Hewen noticed immediately and moved closer to him. Admiral, are you okay? She asked. Quietly, I'm fine, he said, but his voice was tight. No, you're not. This is like the border wars again. Too much combat too quickly. Lyonese heard this exchange and realized something. Her husband wasn't just a warrior. He was a warrior who had been broken by war once before. That's why he left Earth. That's Why he chose gardens and poetry over glory. She moved to his side and took his hand, not caring what the watching commanders thought. You're not alone in this, she said firmly. Dahayan and LT Unk and GT's hands stopped shaking when Lioness touched him. He looked at her with gratitude, then turned back to the tactical display with renewed focus. The human fleet was pressing the Krello hard now, but the enemy wasn't breaking yet. All Vexirian commanders, this is your queen, Lioness announced suddenly. You will follow Admiral Lee's orders as if they were my own. He has proven his worth in blood and strategy. Any hesitation from this point forward is treason. The effect was immediate. The Vexirian commanders, who had been questioning the strange tactics, now executed them perfectly. The fleet moved as one, combining traditional Vexirian power with human unpredictability. Thank you, Dahun said quietly to Lurenes. Don't thank me yet, she replied. We still need to win this battle, and then you still need to explain everything on the tactical display. The Krell fleet was finally beginning to break apart, but their flagship, a massive warship 3 times the size of any Vexirian vessel, was still intact and fighting. It was moving toward the planet, toward the palace. They're going for a direct assault. Commander Hwan said that flagship has enough firepower to lift the entire capital city. Dahun studied the display carefully. His military mind was calculating options, running through scenarios. Finally, he made a decision. Admiral Park, pull your fleet back. Let the flagship through. Everyone in the throne room stared at him in shock. Even the experienced Admiral Park hesitated. Sir, that's suicide. If that ship reaches the planet, millions will die. I know what I'm doing, Dahun said firmly. Trust me. Pull back and prepare for diamond formation at my signal. You're letting them attack the palace, Lannis demanded. My people are down here. Your people are in shelters below the palace, Dean explained quickly. The palace itself has something the Krell don't know about. Do you remember your coronation ceremony? The ancient shields they activated during the ritual? Lyrenes nodded slowly. The ceremonial shields. They're thousands of years old. Nobody uses them because modern weapons make them obsolete. They're obsolete against modern weapons. Yes, Dion agreed, but combined with human stealth technology, they can create a feedback loop. When that flagship fires its main weapon at the palace, the shield will absorb the energy and redirect it back. The ship will destroy itself. That's insane, Lady Sarah said. The tolerances have to be perfect. If you're wrong by even a small amount, the palace and everyone in it will be vaporized. I know, Dahun said. That's why I've been studying those shields for 3 years. I know exactly how they work. You've been planning this? Lyonese asked in disbelief. I've been planning for every possible threat to Vexar, Dahun corrected, including Krell invasion. This was scenario 17 in my contingency plans. The Krell flagship entered the planet's atmosphere, its weapons charging. Energy readings on the tactical display went off the scale as the massive ship prepared to fire its planet killer weapon. Dahun activated controls that none of the Vexarians knew existed in their own palace. The ancient ceremonial shields hummed to life, creating a shimmering barrier of energy around the entire structure. Then he activated devices from his garden, human technology that had been disguised as decorative sculptures for years. Everyone get down, he ordered. This is going to be loud. The Krell flagship fired. A beam of pure destruction lanced down from the sky, bright enough to turn night into day across half the planet. It struck the palace shields with enough force to shake the ground for miles around, but the shields held more than held. They absorbed the energy, channeled it through the human technology Dayan had installed, and reflected it back toward the source. The beam reversed direction, climbing back up into the sky like a spear of light. It struck the Krell flagship directly. The massive ship tried to raise its own shields, but it was too late. The ship's own weapon energy tore through its armor, overloaded its reactors, and caused a chain reaction that lit up the sky like a second sun. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the flagship except debris falling through the atmosphere. The throne room was silent. Every Vexirian was staring at Do, hewn with a mixture of awe and fear. This quiet man who read poetry had just destroyed the Krell's most powerful warship using their own weapon against them. Admiral Park, execute diamond formation on the remaining Krell ships, Dahayan said calmly, as if he hadn't just performed a miracle. They'll be disorganized after losing their flagship. Press the advantage. The human fleet surged forward. The Vexirian ships followed their lead. Within 20 minutes, the remaining Krell forces were either destroyed or retreating into faster than light jumps. The battle was over. Vexor had won, but before anyone could celebrate, a communication came through from the fleeing Krell fleet. An old Krell warrior appeared on the screen, his face marked with scars from countless battles. I am Admiral Throck of the Krell Dominion, he announced. I request parley under the ancient rules of honorable combat. That battle was unlike anything we expected. I would speak with the strategist who defeated us. Dahan stepped forward. I'm here. Admiral Throck, the Krell admiral, studied him carefully. You are human. We were told humans were a young race new to war, but you fight like you have been soldiers for 10,000 years. Humans have always known war, Dean said sadly. We're very good at it, but we've also learned when not to fight. Why did you attack Vexar? We received intelligence that Queen Lyranes was preparing to invade Krell space. We struck first to protect our people. Lyranes stepped into view on the communication screen. That's a lie. Have no plans to invade anyone. Then someone fed us false information, Admiral Throck said, his expression thoughtful. Someone wanted our two empires to destroy each other. Dahan pulled up data on his tactical display. Commander Hewan, show me the intelligence intercepts from the past 6 months. Look for any communications that might have been sent to both Vexar and Krell. Hewan worked quickly, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Within minutes, she found something. Here, a series of messages sent to Vexirian border stations claiming Krell was massing troops, and similar messages sent to Krell outposts claiming Vexar was preparing invasion fleets. The Syndicate, Dahayan said with sudden understanding. They profit from galactic instability. If Vexar and Krell went to war, both empires would need to buy weapons, hire mercenaries, borrow money. The Syndicate would make trillions. Admiral Throck's face darkened with anger. We were manipulated, used like pawns in someone else's game. Yes, Dahayan agreed. And if we continue fighting each other, they win. But if we work together to stop them, we all benefit. You propose alliance between Krell and Vexar, I propose truth, Dune said, and cooperation against a common enemy. The Syndicate has bases throughout the galaxy. They're protected by bribes and secrecy, but if three major powers, Krello, Vexar, and Earth, combined resources to find them, they would have nowhere to hide. Lyranus looked at Dion with new understanding. He wasn't just a warrior. He was a diplomat who understood that the best victory was one where everyone stopped fighting. Admiral Throck considered this proposal carefully. I must consult with my government, but I will recommend they consider this alliance. You have proven yourself honorable in battle, human. That means something to the Krello. The communication ended. The hand slumped slightly, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Commander Hewen caught his arm to steady him. The Admiral needs rest, H1 said firmly. He hasn't slept in 30 hours, and he's been managing combat operations while fighting his own battles. Lyonese understood what Hewen meant, the shaking hands, the tight voice. Dahan was struggling with more than just physical tiredness. Everyone out, Lannis ordered. The Admiral and I need privacy. The throne room emptied quickly. Even Commander Hewen left, though she gave Dahan a concerned look before going. When they were alone, Lyonese turned to her husband, the man who had saved her empire, the man who had lied to her for 3 years, the man she realized she still loved, despite everything. Sit down before you fall. Down, she said, guiding him to sit on the steps below her throne. He sat gratefully, his body finally giving to exhaustion. The throne room was quiet except for the distant sounds of damage control teams working throughout the palace. Lannis sat beside Dahan on the steps, close enough to touch but not touching. The space between them felt larger than it had ever been. Tell me everything, she said quietly. Start from the beginning, the real beginning. Dahan was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired but honest. My name is Lee Dahan. That part was always true. But I wasn't a merchant when we met. I was Admiral Lee Dahan, commander of Earth's 3rd Special Operations Fleet. Why did you lie about that? Lannis asked, trying to keep the hurt from her voice. Because I was running away, Dahan admitted. Earth had been fighting the border wars for 10 years. Species from the outer rim trying to push into human space. I won battle after battle, but each victory cost lives. Soldiers under my command, civilians caught in crossfire. Every night I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. He paused, his hands trembling slightly again. Lyranese noticed and took one of his hands in hers. He looked surprised but grateful. The final battle of the war was at a colony called New Sol, he continued. We won. We saved the colony, but I lost 3,000 soldiers doing it. 3,000 people who trusted me to bring them home. After that battle, I resigned. Earth's government tried to change my mind, but I was done. I couldn't be responsible for more deaths. So you became a merchant, Lyas said. I tried to, Dahan corrected. I traveled to different worlds selling books and plants, simple things, peaceful things. Then I came to Vexar for a trade meeting. And I met you in that market. Lannis remembered that day clearly. She had been walking through the city in disguise, tired of court politics and military briefings. She wanted to see her people as they really lived. That's when she found his small shop selling Earth items. You asked me about the Flowers, Dehan said, a small smile appearing on his tired face. You said they reminded you of the gardens your mother kept before she died. We talked for hours about beauty, mortality, and what makes life worth living. For the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to someone who understood. I felt the same way, Lyranes admitted. You were different from everyone in my world, gentle where they were harsh, thoughtful where they were impulsive. When you told me you were the queen, I almost ran. Dahan said, I didn't want to be involved in politics or military matters ever again, but you asked me to stay to see you again, and I couldn't refuse. Why didn't you tell me the truth when we got closer? Lannis asked. When we decided to marry, Dahan looked down at their joined hands. Because I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, you would see me as a weapon instead of a person. Everyone else in my life had always seen the admiral first and the man second. With you I could just be Dahyun, who liked gardens and poetry. I wanted to protect that, but you were still watching for threats, Lena said, still preparing defenses, still being the admiral in secret. I couldn't help it. He admitted, when you love someone, you protect them. I saw potential threats too. Vexar everywhere, the syndicates, growing influence, the Krells expanding, military, pirates in the outer systems. I couldn't just ignore those dangers, even if I wasn't officially a soldier anymore, so you built a hidden defense network, Lyranes said, right under my nose. I thought if I did it quietly, I could keep you safe without you ever needing to know about my past. I was a fool. Secrets like that always come out. Eventually, one. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the first rays of dawn were beginning to show through the damaged walls of the throne room. The night of battle was ending. Are you angry with me? Dahan asked quietly. Lyranes considered the question. Honestly, yes, and hurt and confused. You lied to me for 3 years. Dayan, you let me think you were someone you weren't. I know, I'm sorry, but Lyranes continued, you also saved my empire. Tonight, you saved my life multiple times, and everything you just told me explains so much about who you are, the nightmares you sometimes have, the way you always position yourself between me and doors, the sadness in your eyes when you think I'm not looking. I never wanted you to see that part of me. Hun said, the broken soldier who can't forget his failures. Why not? Lyranes demanded, finally releasing some of her anger. Did you think I was so weak that I couldn't handle the truth? I'm a warrior queen. Dahan, I've seen death and suffering. I've made hard choices that cost lives. Did you think I wouldn't understand? No, he said quickly. I never thought you were weak. I thought I was. I thought if you saw how damaged I was, you wouldn't want me anymore. Lai stood up and paced across the throne room floor. She needed to move to think. Everything she thought she knew about her husband had been turned upside down in one night. What happens now? She asked. Whole galaxy knows about you now. Earth's fleet is here. You coordinated my military like you were born to it. Dahyun stood slowly. Earth and LT Unk and GTS government has already contacted me. They want me to return to active duty. Command a joint task force against the syndicate. Lyranes felt something cold settle in her stomach. You're leaving. No, Dahan said firmly. I told them. No, I left military service for a reason. Those reasons haven't changed. But your planet needs you, my empire Needs you, the Krell Alliance will need someone to coordinate it. Krell and I can help with all of that, Dehan said. But I don't need to be a full-time admiral to do it. I can be a consultant, an advisor, someone who helps when needed but isn't responsible for everything. He walked to her and took both her hands in his. Lanny's. I left Earth because I couldn't be a soldier anymore, but I came to Vexar and fell in love with you. This is my home now. You are my home. I'm not leaving that, even though I'm angry with you, even though you're angry with me, he confirmed. You have every right to be angry. I kept enormous secrets from you. I lied by omission every day for 3 years. If you need time to forgive me, I understand. If you never fully forgive me, I'll accept that too, but I'm not leaving. Lanny's looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. The gentle man she married was real. The deadly warrior was also real. Both were part of the same person, and both were offering themselves to her. Honestly, for the first time, I don't know if I can trust you again, she said. Honestly, not right away. I know, Dehan said. Trust has to be earned, and I broke it, so I'll earn it back however long it takes. And no more secrets, Lyranes insisted. No more secrets, he agreed. They stood there in the damaged throne room as the sun rose fully over the capital. Through the broken walls they could see the city below. People were emerging from shelters, looking at the sky where the battle had raged. The Krell ships were gone. Vexar had survived. Your garden is completely destroyed, Liani said, noticing the smoking crater where the beautiful plants had been. I know, Dayan said with surprising peace in his voice, but gardens can be rebuilt. Everything that matters survived the night. 6 months later, the palace gardens were nearly restored. Dehan worked among the plants like he always had, trimming and watering, but now there was no pretense. Everyone knew who he was. The nobles who once mocked him now treated him with respect bordering on fear, but he was still just the gardener most days. He wore simple clothes and got dirt under his fingernails. The only difference was that twice a week he went down to the command center beneath the garden to consult on military matters and intelligence reports. The alliance between Vexar, Krell, and Earth was officially formed. The Syndicate was being hunted across the galaxy, their operations disrupted by coordinated efforts. Admiral Throck had become an unexpected friend, respecting Dayan and LT Unk and GT's combination of military skill and diplomatic wisdom. Lanny's found him in the garden one afternoon. He was teaching a group of young Vexirian military officers about strategy, using the garden as a metaphor. A garden teaches patience, he was explaining. You cannot force a plant to grow faster by pulling on it. You can only create the right conditions and let nature take its course. Strategy is the same. You create the conditions for victory and then execute at the right moment. The officers listened with complete attention. When the lesson ended, they saluted him before leaving. Dehan watched them go with satisfaction. You're good at this, Lyrani said, approaching. Teeing, I mean, it's easier than fighting, June replied, and more rewarding. Are you happy? She asked. With how things turned out, he considered the question seriously. Happy is a complicated word. I'm content. I'm useful without being consumed by military duty. I get to teach without sending people into battle, and I'm with you, which is all I really wanted, even though I was angry. with you for months, even though he confirmed it. You had every right to be, but we worked through it together, no more secrets. Remember, Lyrene smiled there. Relationship had been difficult after the battle. There had been arguments and tears and long silences, but slowly they had rebuilt the trust that secrets had broken. She knew all of him now, both the gentle gardener and the deadly warrior, and she loved both. The Krell ambassador is coming next week, she said. He wants your advice on reforming their military intelligence. I'll make time for it, DeHaan said, but I'm not taking a formal position with them. Good, because I need you here. She reached out and took his hand. He smiled and squeezed back gently. In the distance, young Vexarian soldiers practiced combat techniques that Dayan had taught them. Human ships patrolled the system in cooperation with Vexarian forces. The galaxy was changing, becoming more connected and cooperative. And in the center of it all was a quiet garden where a former admiral grew flowers and thought about peace. DeHaan looked at the plants around him. Some were Vexarian, some were Earth species, and some were from Krello worlds, gifts from Admiral Throck, different species, growing together in harmony. Some flowers bloom only when the season is right, he said quietly, repeating the words he had told Lyrene years ago. She remembered when he first said it, back when she didn't understand what he meant. And what season is this, she asked. DeHaan looked at the garden, then at the peaceful sky above, then finally at his wife, the warrior queen who had chosen to love all of him, secrets and all. This is the season of peace, he said, hard-won and carefully tended. Like any good garden, it requires constant attention, but it's worth the effort. Lannis leaned against him, and they stood together in the garden. They had both protected the humble man and the warrior, the queen and the admiral. All of them real, all of them whole, all of them finally honest with each other. And in that honesty they had found something stronger than either had known before. Not just love, but understanding. Not just partnership, but true unity. The flowers bloomed around them, proof that beauty could grow even in soil watered by battle and conflict. And Dei smiled because for the first time in many years he felt truly at peace with who he